Hello. I am going to be reviewing this new movie, Death of a Unicorn. This is a new A24 production that is written and directed by Alex Sharfman, a name I'm entirely unfamiliar with, and it follows a daughter and a father, and they hit a little horned equine thing while on their way to the father's boss's rich mansion. I was initially not gonna check this out, mainly because the trailers really didn't look like my thing. A lot of the humor in the trailers fell really flat for me, and it was also giving up a lot of the plot very early on in the trailer, and that's just been frustrating me lately, where trailers are revealing way too much about the movies. But I thought I might as well check it out because I was vaguely interested in it. I was pleasantly surprised. It's definitely not a perfect movie by any means, and I'll get into the flaws pretty soon, but I was pretty entertained the entire way through. It really delivers on its premise, and although I do think sometimes it's trying to juggle its tones very oddly, or it's trying to do a little bit too much, for the most part I think it's very well intentioned and just fun. I'll start off with the good stuff. First up, the visuals. I think the unicorns look really great. They're equal parts ethereal and menacing, and they just hold a lot of weight and don't feel artificial and fake like a lot of CGI in modern films have recently. The kills are also really gnarly. I wasn't expecting them to go so over the top with the gore, but I think it really works. I think the camera work is a mixed bag. I love when it has this very frenetic energy to its movements, but whenever the movie slows down, it gets very flat and uncreative with its framing choices. This especially detracts from the third act, which has the misfortune of occurring in the daytime. A lot of the film is set at night, and there's a lot of texture and atmosphere to the nighttime sequences. But once it gets into the third act and the sun comes up, it kind of drains itself of any personality visually. So while there's certain moments of the finale that work, I think ultimately it's pretty underwhelming because of the way it looks. And that's a pretty common theme here in this film. There's certain aspects that are clicking in certain moments, but it's never all clicking on all cylinders. It feels like there's always something holding it back from truly being the best version of itself, if that makes sense. Getting into the performances, I think they're also quite a mixed bag. There's just a lot of characters and a lot going on, and it feels like some of the performances feel like they're entirely different movies, which kind of speaks to how muddled the tone of this movie is. My two favorite performances, Will Poulter and Anthony Carrigan, are really leaning into the comedic side of the script. But a lot of the other performances don't really seem to be on the same page. And again, because there's so many characters, Carrigan in particular gets sidelined. He's sort of designated to delivering offhanded comments or hanging out in the edges of frames. So I think the fact that even in his limited screen time, he is a standout performer really speaks to how great he is comedically in this movie. Poulter, on the other hand, gets multiple moments where he's the center of attention, and mostly those are the best parts of the movie. I think there's a version of this thing that is just Will Poulter's character doing unicorn drugs and slowly losing his mind. And anytime it was that version of the movie, I was locked in and really, really entertained. But again, because it's trying to do so many things, that plotline really doesn't get as much time as it really deserves to shine and really get fleshed out. In terms of the leads, Jenna Ortega and Paul Rudd, I thought they were just fine. Paul Rudd's character is a little weakly written, in my opinion. He doesn't really get a lot of progression in his arc for the first hour or so. And once you hit that third act, they start to give him a lot of emotional beats that I just don't think work. I think it's a little too late for his character. I've just already lost interest in him, and he's been so unlikable the rest of the movie that I'm just not invested anymore. But that's more of an indictment on the writing than a criticism of Rudd, who I think is just his usual charming self and is doing the best with what he has here. Ortega is pretty solid too. I don't know if it's just because I mainly know her from the Scream movies, but I think she is particularly excelling at the horror aspects of this movie. She's doing a really good job of acting scared and making the viewer really feel the tension of those scenes. I don't necessarily think it's the most impressive or flashy performance, but she's definitely getting the job done. So yeah, the performances are a mixed bag here, and the visuals are just kind of all right. But once we get into the narrative, I think it really starts to falter a little bit. It's trying to be a creature feature, a satirical comedy, and this family drama about grieving. And it's usually trying to be all of those things all at the same time. and I just don't think it ever finds the right balance between them. It also just doesn't have a lot of breathing room. It's like continually pushing forward with plot logistics and killing sprees, and there's never a lot of moments to sit with the characters, which I think is important for any part of this movie to really function. It doesn't really work as a creature feature because I'm not invested in the characters, and so I'm not really interested in which one of them survives or not. It doesn't really work as a satirical comedy because I don't think those themes and ideas are really explored deeply enough. And it doesn't really work as this family drama because, again, the characters just are a little too one dimensional to really get emotionally invested in. I think there's something here if they focused on one of those three aspects, but ultimately it's really trying to put too many eggs in too many baskets, and it ends up falling short of its lofty ambitions. But despite those faults, I think for the most part, Death of a Unicorn is pretty solid. I was never really bored, and I was actually on the edge of my seat for a lot of the horror aspects. Again, some of the kills are really great, and I think they're very creative and fun. Some of the jokes hit, although it is a pretty hit or miss comedy, and I think the performances are charming enough. It's probably something that I'm going to forget in a couple weeks, but it was a pretty fun time at the movies. So I'm going to be giving Death of a Unicorn 2.5 stars out of 5. And yeah, that's it. Go watch it if you want, or don't, I guess. And yeah, in a couple days, I'll be reviewing Severance Season 2. And that's it. Bye bye.